Robert Redford.
The actor Robert Redford has died.
Robert Redford passed away today.
View as they will. There's nothing much I can do about that. But work is something I can do something about, so I tend to focus on that.
You know, if anybody had told you a year ago that you would have been ... We don't benefit financially from the film, so therefore we just show what's out there and let the audience decide.
Robert Redford was the man in movies, the guy people were most excited to see in the movies.
I try to avoid that, but I think it's unavoidable.
We have to talk about how incredibly good-looking Robert Redford was. I think that absolutely made him stand out.
You know, I can't do this forever. I've been doing it since I was 21. As you move into your 80s, you say, hey, that's enough.
He just had hit after hit after hit. He knew how to command a silver screen, and audiences could really not get enough of him.
Well, I just didn't think I was going to see this. But I'm no less grateful.
Redford made his name as an actor starting in the 1960s.
Hollywood is full of stories about glittering premieres, golden awards, and lives that seem larger than life. But sometimes the stories that last the longest aren't about success, they're about tragedy. Behind the fame and fortune, even the biggest stars can find themselves caught in events so dark and unsettling that they change everything. For Robert Redford, one of the most respected actors and filmmakers of his generation. That moment came in 1983. At the time, his career was thriving. He had already become a household name through classics like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting. He wasn't just an actor. He was a symbol of Hollywood prestige, the man who had it all. But fame can't shield you from heartbreak. And Redford soon learned that even his family wasn't safe from the kinds of horrors most people only read about. ID started with a single, devastating headline. His daughter Shauna's boyfriend, a bright young student with his entire future ahead of him, was found dead in his apartment. What should have been an ordinary summer day turned into a nightmare. The details were shocking, the rumors were explosive, and the cloud of suspicion that followed would haunt Redford and his family for decades. This wasn't just another Hollywood scandal. It was a murder tied to drugs, betrayal, and a suspect who vanished without a trace. And for Robert Redford, it was the kind of tragedy you don't just move past, it stays with you, reshaping the way you see the world. Before his name was tied to one of the most haunting unsolved crimes of the 1980s. Sid Wells was just a young man with big dreams. At 22 years old, he was a journalism student at the University of Colorado Boulder, known among his friends as intelligent, kind, and focused. He wasn't a celebrity or someone chasing the spotlight. He was an ordinary student carving out his own path, hoping to one day tell stories that mattered. But what made his life so closely linked to Hollywood royalty was his relationship with Shauna Redford, Robert Redford's daughter. The two had been together for 3 years, and by all accounts, their relationship was strong. Sid wasn't just Shauna's boyfriend, he was part of the Redford family's inner circle. He attended family gatherings, and many close to them believed marriage was only a matter of time. For Robert Redford, Sid wasn't just his daughter's partner, he was someone he trusted to be in her life for the long term. Friends described Sid as grounded, someone who balanced Shauna's artistic upbringing with a steady presence. He wasn't swept up in fame or fortune, which only made him more appealing to the Redfords. To those who knew him, Sid represented the kind of future you hope for your children: stable, promising, and filled with love. And yet, behind this seemingly perfect picture, trouble was quietly brewing. Sid shared an apartment with roommates, including one man whose life was beginning to spiral out of control. That connection would soon lead to a tragedy that no one, not the Redfords, not Sid's family, not even the investigators, could ever fully make sense of. On August 1st, 1983, the calm of a summer day in Boulder, Colorado, was shattered. Inside a modest apartment, Sid Wells's life came to a sudden and violent end. He was found shot in the back of the head with a 12-gauge shotgun, his body discovered in his bedroom. There were no signs of a struggle, no chance for him to fight back. It was the kind of execution-style killing that left investigators stunned. The scene told a story, but not a complete one. Lying nearby were items that hinted at possible drug connections, rumors of missing cocaine, and whispers that money and addiction had sparked tension between the roommates. The police quickly zeroed in on one man, Thane Smeaker, Sid's 24-year-old roommate. Smeaker had a reputation for financial problems and substance struggles. He was known to borrow money, to fall behind on bills, and to rely on others to get by. Neighbors recalled hearing a loud pop that afternoon, but it wasn't until Sid's brother returned from a camping trip that the horror was revealed. Within hours, the news had spread across Boulder, and before long, it was everywhere. Robert Redford's daughter's boyfriend had been killed, execution style, in his own apartment. For the Redford family, the details were unbearable. For investigators, the case seemed clear: a young man, financial strain, drugs in the background, and a prime suspect who lived under the same roof. But what looked like a straightforward case on the surface would soon unravel into decades of frustration, mystery, and unanswered questions from the very beginning. All eyes were on Thane Smeaker as Sid Wells' roommate. He was the last person anyone would expect to be involved in something so brutal, but the evidence pointed in his direction. Smeaker was already struggling at the time, weighed down by financial troubles and whispers of drug use. He owed people money, often couldn't pay rent, and clashed with Sid over how the apartment was being managed. Investigators believe Smeaker had access to the shotgun used in the crime, and a shell casing found at the scene matched his weapon. Friends and acquaintances later came forward, claiming that Smeaker had made drunken confessions, hinting that he was responsible for Sid's death. But despite the mounting suspicion, prosecutors hesitated. They argued the case wasn't strong enough to guarantee a conviction, and Smeaker was released. Then, in 1986, he simply vanished. He skipped town and never came back. Over the years, there were scattered reports of sightings. Some claimed he was living under a new identity. Others insisted he had fled the country. Law enforcement pursued leads across multiple states, but none ever resulted in his capture. To this day, Thane Smeaker remains a fugitive, wanted for first-degree murder, with an FBI reward attached to his name for the Redfords and for Sid's family. This disappearance turned grief into something worse, a lifelong torment filled with unanswered questions. The prime suspect wasn't just out there, he was out there living free. While Sid's life had been stolen, for most Hollywood stars, the public spotlight means movie premieres and red carpet flashes. But for Robert Redford, that same spotlight turned unbearably harsh when Sid Wells' murder made headlines. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a promising young man cut down in his prime, it was about the superstar whose family was tied to him. Reporters swarmed, eager to connect Redford's name to every development, every rumor, and every twist in the investigation. For Redford, this was more than a tabloid tragedy. Sid wasn't just another headline, he was someone his family had welcomed in, someone they trusted and cared for. The pain of losing him wasn't just grief, it was magnified by the relentless media attention. Redford, usually composed and guarded in interviews, later admitted that the case left a mark on him and his family that would never truly fade. The constant speculation about the killer, the frustrating delays in justice, and the endless reminder of what had happened weighed heavily on him. Behind the glamorous image of a Hollywood icon was a father, an uncle, and a man watching his loved ones unravel under the weight of a tragedy that refused to go away. As years turned into decades, the case of Sid Wells became one of Colorado's most infamous unsolved murders. Detectives refused to let it gather dust. Each time new forensic technology emerged, they revisited the evidence, hoping for a breakthrough. But no matter how hard they pushed, the trail seemed to grow colder. By the early 2000s, Thane Smeaker was no longer just a local suspect, he was a federal fugitive. The FBI issued a warrant for his arrest and added his name to their most wanted lists. His photo was plastered across bulletins, with promises of a hefty reward for any information that could bring him in. Tips trickled in from all over the country, Texas, Oregon, even as far away as Europe. Yet every lead ended the same way: empty. For Sid's family, and for Robert Redford's, the wait was torture. The idea that the man believed to be responsible for Sid's death could be living quietly, building a new life, while their son, brother, and friend lay in the ground, was almost unbearable. Every birthday, every anniversary, every family gathering carried that unshakable weight. Sid was gone, and the man accused of killing him was still free. And just when it seemed hope was slipping away, new movements in the case began to surface. But what happened next would only deepen the Redfords' heartbreak. Decades after Sid Wells' death, the case still refuses to fade. Investigators periodically revived the search, releasing age-progressed sketches of Thane Smekar to show what he might look like today. The FBI has raised rewards and launched fresh appeals for information, keeping the story alive in headlines every few years. Each announcement stirs a painful mix of hope and disappointment for the families left behind. For Robert Redford, now in the later years of his career, the tragedy remains a wound that time has never fully healed. Despite his success, honors, and influence in Hollywood, this private heartbreak has followed him. Friends have said that the murder left him more guarded, more aware of how fragile even the most promising lives can be. The lingering question is, what hurts the most? Will justice ever come? Or will Thane Smekar live out his days as a ghost in hiding, untouched by the law? For Sid's family and for the Redfords, the decades of waiting have been cruel. With grief intertwined with an endless pursuit of closure that has never arrived, Hollywood has seen its share of scandals. But few stories cut as deep as the one that haunted Robert Redford's family. This wasn't about fame, money, or broken careers, it was about a life stolen, a family scarred, and justice that never came. For Redford, whose name is etched into cinema history, this tragedy became a silent shadow that followed him for decades, reminding him and the world that no amount of success can shield someone from heartbreak. Sid Wells's story is more than just a cold case. It's a reminder of the lives left behind when justice is delayed, and how even the brightest families can be bound to the darkest of tragedies. And as long as Thane Smekar remains free, one question will always echo: how long can a shadow outrun the light?